I would say almost every time, biggest leap of faith is literally taking the first step, right? It's making a decision. You know what? I'm going to make a big bet on Brian.
Welcome to the Leader Diaries podcast, where your story is a diary worth sharing. If this is your first time tuning in, I personally want to welcome you and invite you to this journey of leadership. The goal of this podcast is to help develop the leader within you so that you become a leader that produces leaders. Why, you may ask, is because you have influence, which means you have the power to inspire and impact. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Justin Mohabir. I'm a 22-year-old college student who's educated on leadership. I've been working since I was 6 years old at my family-owned restaurant, understanding the heart of leadership, which is to serve others. And I have experience working at Fortune 500 firms. On today's episode, we have the privilege and honor of having Brian King, the founder and CEO of Lotus Markets, a platform working to bring liquidity to private and alternative investments. Brian has spent much of his career building financial marketplaces, including being part of the early team at BATS Global Markets and later working at the New York Stock Exchange. Brian, it's a pleasure to have you on here.
Thank you so much for having me, Justin. It's great to be here.
Brian, he's a graduate from Florida State University, which I'm currently a senior at. And Brian he spoke for the largest finance organization called the Finance Society. And him and I had the privilege of meeting each other. And after that event, we just stayed in contact and just being able to turn that connection to a relationship. So it's been a blessing just knowing you. And I haven't known you for long, so it's just been, I think, just over a month now.
Yeah, that was actually a great event. I had the awesome opportunity to get a tour of the new business school at Florida State, which was amazing. It's beautiful. And it was really good to be back on campus and then be able to connect with other students like yourself and be able to hear their stories and their journeys. And it's amazing what Florida State is doing in and around the business and finance schools. It's really, really impressive. So I was excited to be back.
Before you were the CEO of Lotus, share us your story and what inspired you to be a leader within a organization.
Yeah, so one of the things that I shared when I was speaking with your group was that my background is a little bit unusual, especially what I studied. My dream was always to be in the arts. I studied music, and that was something that when my career, I thought I was going to be in the music world, but life changes. And ultimately, I had a degree, or I had a focus in business, and I had some really cool opportunities to be a part of several really great organizations. You mentioned BATS Global Markets. That was a startup stock exchange that grew to be the second largest stock exchange in the world. And then I go from being a part of a startup to being a part of the New York Stock Exchange, which is one of the oldest companies in the U.S. It's about 230 years old. So really being able to see two different elements. And so I had a lot of great leaders in my life, a lot of people that I thought were just amazing individuals that I wanted to be able to be like. I didn't necessarily always think that I was going to be a CEO of an organization, but opportunity kind of presents itself, and it really became something I was excited to be able to start something new.
So you had mentioned during your time at college, you were heavily involved with music, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
And what was your major?
It was vocal performance. So I was a singer, but I also did a lot of stuff with the symphony. So I was a tuba player. So I did a lot of things. My dream was to ultimately be on Broadway, but I performed at all the different halls that was at Florida State. They have an amazing music program.
After you had graduated, what role did you end up pursuing?
Yeah, so I started my career as a financial advisor, and so there was a interesting path of how that even was initiated, but really was kind of initially going to that career fair and talk that's actually held at Florida State. And then as I was talking to several people within the Florida State environment, the people that came in that were wanting to talk and to find people that were interested in careers, I always had an interest in the finance generally, but the opportunity to do something as a career really, like I said, had not really crossed my mind. But there were a lot of people that went to that career fair that didn't really care what your major was. And so most of them were sales related type organizations. And so financial advisors, you don't necessarily think of them first off as that they're salespeople, but really they are. Their job is to not only manage somebody's assets, but also be able to encourage that person to be able to give their business, their money management opportunity to you. And so it's a big sales opportunity. So really that's what opened that door for me, was having the ability to communicate with people, have conversations with people, and be really comfortable in that kind of selling environment.
How was that experience and what did it teach you?
Well, it taught me that I kind of already knew this, but it taught me that I am really good at building relationships and building trust and that type of thing. And so it was, an area of business that I didn't think that I was going to go into. There wasn't a long track where I was planning for that, but one of the biggest things I realized, I did have to do a lot to learn to be able to keep up with, what people were wanting, what they were needing. So I just kind of became a sponge. I talked to a lot of people about what's important, what's happening, what's going on. And as I get a lot of mentors in my life, just being able to communicate that to my clients and just always, like I said, always be learning and then just building relationships.
So you have mentioned like mentors. How did you end up, stumbling upon the mentors in your life? And what advice do you have for people seeking mentorship?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it really comes down to building relationships. Mentorship, there's people that pay for mentors in their life, but candidly, I think the best mentors are going to be people that you just genuinely build relationships with. And sometimes there's a lot of people in life that like to be able to give back. They like to be able to have, conversations with younger people and be able to help educate them or just give them kind of life lessons that they've experienced. So from my perspective, that was just building those relationships and being willing to ask them for, hey, can I just steal, 30 minutes of your time, whether it's a coffee or something like that. It was really, really valuable to do that. Probably the greatest lesson learned in my life was I did a lot of that when I was younger, but I wish I would have done more, because connections are really, really one of the biggest driving points of anybody's successful career.
Right. Relationships, that's the face of the game in business or whatever, career someone is aspiring to go into. It's about like who you know and who knows you. I think when I think of relationships, it should be rooted in genuinity. And relationships are like plants. Before a plant grows and bears fruits, it starts off as a seed. So you have to be you have to be the gardener. You have to water the seed. You have to steward the relationship. So that's valuable. And then you said, you talked about how there's some people who paid for like mentors and things of that nature. Will you say that's a red flag? Like, should somebody pay for a mentor? Like, talk to me.
No, I wouldn't say it's a red flag. I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah.
people, particularly there's a lot of people that have made their whole careers in business leadership and educational things, for that. And again, I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying that there's a lot of people that you can get one-on-one relationships that's authentic, it's real, it's life experiences. You can have one-on-one conversations with them. To me, that's a lot more valuable than somebody who is getting compensated, because a lot of times people who are leading those educational classes or those leadership classes, made a career out of teaching leadership, not actually leading. I'd rather work with people personally that have had leadership experience.
And that's good. So you graduated from Florida State, you majored in vocal performance,
That's right.
and you thought you was going to work on Broadway, correct?
That's right. Yep.
And then you end up finding yourself stumbling in the finance world. Do you think that was by accident?
Yeah, I don't think anything's by accident. I think that everything happens for a reason. And so I definitely think that opportunity, I'm a person of faith. And so I believe that God presents the opportunities in your life that are going to help you be able to succeed and find happiness. And so for me, I think that was something that really led me down that path. But certainly doors open, doors close, and that was something that made a lot of sense for me and was happy to go through.
Something that Coach Fuller, he's one of the coaches for the football team. He was, talking about adversity, like success through adversity. He was saying how, there's a reason behind everything. And when you think about these moments of adversity, these struggles, it develops endurance And then that endurance develops character, and that character will ultimately turn into hope. So endurance, everyone could start the race, but not everybody could finish the race. So what bridges the gap? Endurance. And because of that endurance, you have character. Think about it. Every trial you go through, it sucks in the moment, but looking back, when you graduated from that trial, you're a better character. You learn valuable lessons. And not only that, now you have a story that you can share with other people who are going through that trial and tribulation. And then that character produces hope. I know I've been through XYZ struggles 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I was able to get out that situation by the grace of God. And now this upcoming trial I have in my life, I'll be fine. So it produces that the element of hope. So that's why I
Yeah.
try to tell people, yeah,
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like what you're saying is at 22 years old is really, really mature and spot on. Again, you're going to go through adversities in life, and being able to see the other side of this adversity is going to help you the next time you're in adversity to be able to say, you know what, I made it through that. I'm going to make it through this, right? And so it builds that hope that and again, when you learn from that past mistake or that past trial that you went through, not only does it give you that hope, but it also lets you know that, hey, there's going to be good that's going to come from this. You don't necessarily look for the lesson in the moment. You're not looking for that, but when it's past, when that adversity is past, you can look back and say, hey, I learned this from this experience, and I can grow and be stronger because of it.
I agree with you. For the people who are interested in the financial service industry, didn't necessarily, major in business, what advice do you have for them when it comes to like pivoting?
Yeah, so as far as pivoting is concerned, I mean, it's interesting. I wear two different hats in my like two ways of thinking. One is that, I think in a lot of ways college can prepare people for an amazing career. And I look at what Florida State's doing, and it really is incredible. The investment that they're making in their students, and what I'm seeing the students, how they're coming out of this school, and the opportunities that are presented in front of them. But school isn't the only thing that opens up a door, right? There are other things, connections, opportunities, curiosity. You mentioned to me before about just always being curious about things. To me, that is what opens up doors. Being curious, always wanting to learn and explore new areas of life, and understanding that curiosity. There's all kinds of resources that can help somebody learn about the financial markets, et cetera. I mean, YouTube is one of the great teachers of our society, for good or bad, but there's a lot of ways to be able to learn information, glean things from people, or pre-done videos, et cetera. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities for people to learn. But going back to what we were just saying, curiosity is really going to allow somebody to say, okay, I can really dive into this particular topic and learn about it. School is just a tool. It's not the tool.
Elaborate on that. School is a tool, but not the tool.
Right. So I mean, it's there again. There's from a college can present lots of opportunities for somebody to learn something, have deep knowledge in a particular topic. And again, it's a tool. It's something that allows somebody to learn. But to go into finance does not necessarily mean you have to have a degree in finance. I don't have a degree in finance, but because of curiosity and being able to put myself around people who were smarter than me, and I wanted to learn everything that I possibly could from them, it just continued to open up new doors. And so while I went to school and had education, it wasn't in finance particularly.
I think that's one of the beauties when it comes to, working in finance. It's teachable. It's not like, pursuing a medical career where you have to go to school for that. So it's easy to make that pivot in finance versus medical path or, engineer. And then something else, I always like to tell people is have an open mind and then being adaptable. That's one of the greatest skills to have, adaptability. And I like what you had mentioned, being curious. Well, I'll take it a step further, like being curious with direction, but having an open mind, identifying those passions you have, identifying what you're interested in. Life is full of pivots and detours. You don't know what, opportunities may present itself, especially what we talked about earlier, relationships. That's a key part. And during those 5 years, you're gonna continue to grow, develop, and meet new people along the way. And as you grow and develop, opportunities are sure to present itself.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree. Just being around other people that are curious too. It's also a lot of times the people that you surround yourself with, which again goes back to where being at a university can also add value. You have other people that all have a similar interest and path. You're learning from each other and that type of thing. So it's I agree.
So let's talk a little bit about your business. So the most common challenge that startup companies face is having people know that you exist. What were some strategies you used to overcome that?
I would say the biggest strategy that we used to overcome was earned media. So there's a difference between paid media and earned media. So we tried to leverage having success in a couple of different areas and then present that to different outlets that might be able to write the story. Let them tell your story. You're not having to pay them. They're, think like the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, Barron's, Financial Times, those types of organizations be able to have success in something and then be able to pitch it to them to say, hey, this is a story that you might be interested in learning more about. We're doing something that's unique and different. And oftentimes, if the story is compelling enough, they will tell that story. You can use paid media, you can use advertising, and that is a very valid strategy. But for us, the approach we took was earned approach, having some success, communicating it to people that will write your story.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Lotus was started in 2020 during the pandemic, correct?
That's right. So we were sourcing funding. I was building the business plan and sourcing funding in 2020. We started actually building it in 21 because we got the funding in 2020.
If you had two words to describe the first year, what words would you use?
I would probably say controlled chaos.
Yeah,
So I feel like there was a plan, but again, you never know what's going to come, particularly in a startup. Like you're trying to source your direction. You know what the ultimate true north is, but you your path isn't necessarily going to be straight from where we are today to that true north, right? So there's going to be some deviations along the way, but being able to be adaptable, a word you used earlier, is really really important because you know I'm trying to remember. There's a boxer that said, "Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth." I don't remember who
Mike
said that.
Tyson.
Mike Tyson. I thought it was Mike Tyson.
Yeah,
I'm like, that's so true in business, right? Like you have your plan, but you're going to get punched in the mouth, one or two times, and all of a sudden that plan changes a little bit, and you have to adapt.
yeah. So when you say that, this is a bit of a irony statement or ironic statement. Is there beauty in navigating the unknown, like back in like 2020, 2021 for your company?
Absolutely. Like it was energizing, it was exciting, it was all those things, but what was really unique about our startup in particular is the fact that and effectively we're operating two startups today, right? So we have the secondaries market, and we have a transfer agent business. The transfer agent is kind of like the infrastructure, the backbone of the industry, but the secondary market was something that had not really existed before in the alternative investment world. And so for us, we were creating a new asset class, a new business, something that had not been done before. There weren't other competitors that we were trying to take on. We were saying, hey, we see a problem, we see a hole, we want to fix it. We ultimately started that second startup business for the transfer agent business. And there are other competitors in that arena. So we are looking at those guys and saying, okay, we see a problem with how they're doing it. We believe with better technology, better several other things that we can do it better. And so we built that on that mentality. But when we were first starting out, it was 100% we're doing something new, and there is no clear path because nobody's walked this path before.
I wanted to ask you, what's the secret sauce to, building your clientele and, having other investors invest in your organization?
I think there's two things. It's probably the first and foremost, anything in business, you have to be able to build trust. You have to be trustworthy. But the second thing is you have to build something that you genuinely believe is either is or is going to be the best of anything else that's out there, right? You can actually so you have to yourself first believe it and then convince others that your belief is realistic, right? That you're going to be able to meet whatever you say you're going to be able to do. And so that's where that building trust piece comes in. So whether it's customers or investors or whatever, that trust is really, really critical.
So you would say business is built on trust.
100%.
As Lotus grows, where do you see the biggest need for talent within the organization?
At our core, we're a technology company. So finding engineers that are self-motivated, that are, quick learners, like that's really probably the most critically important area for talent for us right now as we continue to grow. So, and as we grow, there's different types of engineers that we're hiring as well. So like for instance, we're in the process right now of hiring somebody that's dedicated to security, like DevSec, which is development security operations, those types of things. So there's a lot of areas of growth opportunity. Again, as you're a technology company, we also have a lot of operational support, so like internal operations. That's another big area where we hire.
So where's the company headquartered at?
We're based in Overland Park, Kansas.
Okay. I see that on your LinkedIn. I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, it's us.
Yeah.
We and all but I think currently two of our employees are based here, so we're in office 3 days a week. We have a hybrid model, so we're somewhat remote on Mondays and Fridays, and then on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, we're in the office together. For me, being in a startup world, it's really, really important for people to be able to be working together, working closely. It's not saying that you couldn't do it fully remote, but from my perspective, I've been a part of several startups, and in doing those startup worlds, we were always all together in a room. You get to hear what other people are going through and the hurdles or the struggles or the wins even, and being able to share those things in real time with each other.
So let's zoom out. What is your vision within the organization?
Yeah, so one of the things I guess from the organization's perspective is really trying to solve the industry problem. So like we look at today, the industry of alternative investments is very fragmented, it's very disconnected. And so our focus, in addition to solving problems like secondary markets for alternatives and also the infrastructure issues that exist, is to really be able to bring a better technology to the overall ecosystem so that the whole ecosystem can be more connected. And I think in doing that, what's really important, I think from a future perspective, is that we're also I believe Lotus is going to be very successful on our own, but I candidly believe the best success that we could have is if we partner with other firms, other like-minded firms that have a similar vision of having that more connected ecosystem. So that's a big piece of what we're going to be focusing on over the next 3 to 5 years, is continuing to build out the various services that we already have, building great technology, but from the ecosystem, being able to help be that backbone that bridges technology across all platforms.
How do you go about like navigating like those relationships, like being connected with the right people at these like different institutions to further grow your company?
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes from just having genuine conversations and relationships with people. Like I'll start having a relationship with somebody without the intent of there being a business opportunity for us to work together. But then at some point we're like, hey, we're having these conversations. It would make a lot of sense if we found a way to partner together on this particular initiative. And again, I could have a viewpoint of saying that this technology is fantastic, but unless both of us are kind of have the same mindset, that technology integration between the two of us will never happen. So it's a lot of times you just through having conversations with people evolve and get to a similar vision on a point.
So you're in the business of building genuine relationships, not transactional.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, again, transactional relationships, I don't personally value them as much. There's some people that they're very happy to live in transactional world. For me, I think having relationships with people, because it comes down to, I want people to trust me, but I also want to be able to trust the people that I'm working with as well. Right. And sometimes you don't build that trust with somebody if it's just purely transactional.
Right. So let's further examine what you had mentioned. So when you connect with someone, a leader in their organization, you just have genuine conversations with them. You're not even talking about business. And then later on, then you start talking about business, a little bit about, what your company does. I would just want to make sure I get that right.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are some times where you're learning about each other, the
Yeah.
setup. Maybe I meet somebody at a conference, for instance, and we do initially talk about business. And then once we talk about, okay, this is what you do, this is what I do. And then it takes the next step and we're like, so tell me about your family. Like, what are, where do you live? Like, tell me your story. And so you get to know that person. And now, again, just because I talk to somebody doesn't mean that there's an immediate business opportunity in front of me. I'm going to build that relationship with that person. And then at some point down the road, there might be an opportunity for us to work together. And if there is, then I've got this long-standing history. I know about him and his needs and his family and his whatever else. So again, knowing that person also, if they tell me I'd love to be able to work together, but timing isn't right now. If we can revisit this in 6 months, like, yeah, absolutely. No problem. I understand where you are in life and what's going on in your business and that type of thing. And again, it's not just me trying to get that next deal done. It's trying to actually, I understand where they are, but also in knowing that it's going to help me prioritize maybe some other thing some other project that I'm working on or some other relationship.
So that first point of contact and that first time connecting with someone, business is not the absolute focal point.
Right. Right. Again, and we live in a world where oftentimes people's identities are wrapped up in what they do, right? For right or wrong, it is. Somebody says, "Hey, Justin, tell me a little bit about yourself." You're like, "Oh, I'm a student." Well, that being a student doesn't define who you are, right? But oftentimes that's the first thing we go to. And so when I'm striking up an initial conversation with somebody, oftentimes business happens to be them describing who they are and what they're about and that type of thing. So, but no, doing a deal is not the very first thing that any relationship should be based on.
How would you go about describing yourself when you connect with someone for the first time?
I probably do talk about, like my career, right? I talk about
Yeah.
something that has to do with me in business. Oh, like somebody says, "Hey, what do you do?" Like, or that's what most times the people ask you. It's like, "Oh, I'm the CEO of a startup, stock exchange for alternative investments." Right? So that's just blanket. That's where I say it. That doesn't even capture the whole of what my business does, but that's just kind of how I generally do it. For right or wrong, there's usually better elevator pitches that you're taught to say about yourself, but kind of most casually, that's the way that I go about saying it. But that's a very small reflection of who I am as a person.
Right. No, that's well said. And I want to pick your brain. So let's say you meet someone and in this encounter, this is you can you there's not going to be a next time. Like this, let's say is like someone like Shaquille O'Neal. Like let's go back to your financial advisor days. You have access to Shaquille O'Neal. You see him. You have a conversation with him. How would you approach that situation?
I honestly, I have had several opportunities like that where you meet somebody that's a celebrity of some sort, right? And I would say that largely I'm not anybody different, right? While the profile of that person is a little bit different, like I look at a Shaquille O'Neal and like as of right now, he doesn't have from a business perspective, he doesn't have anything necessarily to offer me. I don't know that I have anything to offer him. And that's really the way that I look at any relationship. There's a chance that we have something but if I can connect to that person on a human level, whether we exchange business ideas or whether we exchange life ideas, right? That's how I view it's a relationship, right? It's just we're sharing who we are about each other, et cetera. And if business happens sometime down the road, it happens. But I don't treat anybody any differently, whether they're the CEO of some massive organization or an athlete or whatever. Generally, I try to treat everybody the same.
Now that says a lot about your character. You can always gauge s- someone character at in some aspect and how they treat others. And the fact that you said that you treat everyone the same, and I think of know, the way you treat the janitor should be the same way you treat the CEO. How do you define leadership, and do you believe everyone is called to be a leader?
I think everybody is a leader. Whether you are in a leadership, it's not just a title or a position thing. I believe leadership is about influence, setting an example, helping others move towards a shared purpose. Like our company has a vision and a mission statement, right? If you are doing things to help the company get towards that mission, that vision, you are a leader, whether your title says that you are or not. So I do believe everybody is called to be a leader. Everybody is called to Everybody influences other people around them, and influence to me is the true definition of leadership, right? And so no matter what your title is, you are a leader.
So when it comes to the selection process for people within your organization to take leadership roles, what does that look like?
I think the thing that I'm probably most important to me, it's always hard to say most important because there's a couple of things that are most important. But one is going to be that person has to be self-motivated. I don't want somebody in my organization that I have to constantly be motivating. I want somebody that's hungry, somebody that cares deeply about what they do. So being that self-motivated person, I think is first and foremost. But I also need people that have great character, people that I'm going to enjoy actually working with, right? That others are going to enjoy working with. So having drive is having the right culture prevents problems. Having somebody that has the right drive, that's 80% of what you need. Everything else can be taught.
You can't coach character.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
so let's say the people in leadership at your organization, great performers, but their character is terrible. Like they're hard to work with. How are you maneuvering that situation?
Typically, if they have hopefully when we're going through the hiring process, our hiring process is not easy, just in the sense that it's a long process because we care deeply about making sure that it's a cultural fit. And so my hope is that we've vetted out anybody who won't be a cultural fit before they ever enter our doors. But if they are not a cultural fit, something is you learn after the fact that their character is in question. You have to eradicate that really, really fast because typically that's going to be a cancer in the organization. That negative mindset, that bad character has a way of working its way through an organization and affects other people.
What are some leadership lessons you learned being a founder?
Probably the number one thing that I've found is I've always had a mindset that nobody's going to do it better or care more about it than I will. And so it's whether that's true or not true, you can't do everything. I think that's the number one thing that I've learned is that I can't do everything. For the people who think that they can do everything, there's things that they aren't doing well. And I think that's the thing that I kind of learned. In a startup, you have to wear many, many hats. But as that startup grows, you start to realize that you have to be able to start delegating certain things. Otherwise, some of the things that you're doing, you're not going to be doing them well. Really being able to trust others, delegate that responsibility to them, I think is really going to be the probably the biggest lesson that I had to learn in business.
So there's an emphasis on having a team as your organization grows.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think too, like people who try to do everything, like to your point, like they shouldn't be doing that. And then also, there's only so long that they can do that because over time they're going to be burned out.
Like I said, you're going to be burned out. But in addition to that, I mean, if you're the marketing guy, you're the sales guy, you're the vision guy, you're the HR person. Again, if you're all the things, as you grow, something is going to have to suffer for you to do the other jobs, right? And so one thing is going to fail. At least one is going to fail. And so you have to be able to find people that are competent around you. And I think the other big thing is that I have to be able to focus on if there's things that only I can do, then those are the things that I need to be working on. If there's something that other people can be doing, I need to be able to delegate it to those people.
What would you say is your biggest leap of faith moment in your professional career?
I would say almost every time, biggest leap of faith is literally taking the first step, right? It's making a decision. You know what? I'm going to make a big bet on Brian that I'm going to get this business started, right? Because now it's not just about taking care of me and my family. I'm taking a lot of other families along for this ride too. And so taking that first step is always the hardest. Making the decision, okay, I am doing this. I'm moving forward. That's always to me the biggest leap of faith is that first step.
So so you would say like every decision you make impacts someone.
100%.
All right, so we're gonna transition to lightning round. What books have helped you in your career?
I would say two stand out the most. One is the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek. If you haven't read it, it's fantastic, particularly for somebody who's starting a new business. It's great. It's nothing about it is rocket science, but it is really, really great for being able to help organize your thought about, okay, put the why first. Anytime you're starting a business, what is the why? Why are you doing this? Way before you get to how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? Like, what's the why? Why are you trying to solve this problem? The second book that I would say was very impactful for me, both in business but beyond business as well, was a book by Malcolm Gladwell called David versus Goliath. I would say is probably one of my top books I've ever read of any genre is David versus Goliath. It was fantastic.
What's one piece of advice you wish you knew earlier in your career?
I touched on this earlier, but I would say focus on building relationships. I did build relationships, but I would say I would probably put even more emphasis on doing that because opportunities almost always come through your connections. So I would say, students in college, the biggest way to get those first doors opened are going to be your connections. It's never too late to start building connections. And so obviously the earlier you can do it, the more dividends it pays later on. Whether you're 20, whether you're 60, be building relationships.
So being a CEO of a startup, how many hours a week do you work?
There's a Patrick Mahomes commercial for Head and Shoulders there's another football player, I can't remember, used to be for the Steelers, but his name escapes me. But the joke was that never not working. And so I jokingly say that I'm never not working, like my mind is always working. But I would say in reality, it's probably somewhere between 70 and 80 hours a week, depending on what's going on. But it doesn't feel like it's always working because it's something that I enjoy, right? There's going to come a point in time where that's not going to be sustainable. But yeah, I'd say that's about where it lands.
Okay, this is going to be our last question. When the clock hits zero, how does Brian King want to be remembered as?
Brian King wants to be remembered as a guy who had deep faith and genuinely cared about people. I would say that those are the two things that matter above and beyond. I don't necessarily care about people remembering the impact I made on business. Let somebody else take the credit for that. At the end of the day, I want people to know that, hey, that guy really cared about people.
That's powerful. It reminds me of this quote. It goes like, people don't remember like what you say, but remember how you made them feel.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Brian, I appreciate you once again for coming on to this episode and sharing your insights.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for having me, Justin.
This is the Leader Diaries podcast, where your story is a diary worth sharing. And don't forget to be present where your feet are being planted.